Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about meditation, about Buddhism a little bit. I was trained pretty much mainly in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. I did have some Zen. I actually was doing Zen in San Francisco and was fortunate enough to have a little bit of training under Suzuki Roshi um, in San Francisco area. Um, Tibetan Buddhism is what I kind of trained in under a number of different lamas. My main teacher being Lama Yeshe, and then Lama Zopa, and then of course many other lamas. And so we talk a little bit about meditation and why we use meditation. So first of all, I should mention that especially within the Tibetan tradition, meditation is not just sitting, but it is. So in the Sutrayana path, we begin by sitting meditation, and we use development of calm abiding. So calm abiding um, is brought about through understanding, recognizing the nature of one's mind, which arises insight. Vipassana comes from shamatha, the calm abiding, quiet mind. Most people now, they're doing meditation, quite often because they have stress, which is fine, but we release the stress in our normal practices of meditation. That's not within our practice, it's not for that particular reason, but for those that come about meditation and want to use it to quiet and calm one mind, we get that to understand why are we sitting. Now, there's other forms of meditation, especially using mantra, which is working with our energy, working with our mantras, the sound of the mantra, the vibration, visualization of the mind in different areas of the body within the chakras. And there's also physical movement. There's dance even within. There's a certain type of dance that's used. All of that can be meditation, but to begin with, we begin a lot to start with quiet meditation because we want our minds to quiet down, to calm down, because that's the nature of our mind. That's really our reality. And we're striving for that in a sense every moment. We're always looking for something more, something different, something more quiet, something, more peaceful, going on. But unfortunately, most of us being brought up in the Western world, we believe that the solution to our amount of discontent, unsatisfactoriness, which is, by the way, why Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths, and the first truth that he taught was the truth of dissatisfaction, the truth of suffering. Because if we don't recognize that there's a certain amount of pain going on within us at this present time, we don't look to get rid of it. It's like if we have somebody stealing from us and we don't know that, and then we don't recognize who it is, we don't solve the problem. So it's a truth, it's a reality. Our situation as it is today is not in alignment with our true nature. Okay, so what is our true nature? Our true nature is a clear, calm, clear mind. It's a mind that's empty of a preconceived, limited concepts that we have of ourselves. But we think we know based off of who I think I am, how I've been brought up, that I go to school, I go to work, I collect a car, I collect a house, I get more things in order to bring about the happiness that's really part of our inner search that's always going on. There's always some level of uncomfortableness going on to some degree that we actually we know it, we recognize it, and that's why we keep grasping at it. So the idea of the meditation is to begin to sit with ourselves And I guess if we were going to use new type of terminology, not that new, but new in the last 50, 60 years or so of spiritual practices, becoming friends with ourselves. We can sit quietly, we can sit with ourselves without having to, put on another radio channel, another TV channel, have to mess around with, with the iPhones and with all the technology. We learn to just sit and begin to recognize the level of and depth of satisfaction that actually exists within us and can be felt at any time. But what happened is that there's three things that make us up: our body, our physical body, and even our more subtle psychic body, our energy levels, and our speech, which are connected together, and our mind. These are the three things that need to be, to go back into some form of alignment. We need to be able to recognize them. So if we're able to begin to realize, to feel ourselves, that there's always something going on. There's always there's a pull and push going on most of the time. I'm pulling for the things that I want to have happen for myself. I'm pushing away from that things that we don't really find that are acceptable for myself, that I've decided are things that I want to reject. And that energy builds up and builds up. And what it also does is it creates a habit formation. And so the habit formation that's based on diluted states of mind that grasp after something that we think is going to bring us back total happiness. There's no problem with having nice things at all. There's no problem with getting a car to, take us places, a house to live in, all these things. There's no problem with any of that. But if we look at that as the ultimate solution, then we're in for a dissatisfaction, because it doesn't have the ability to give us total happiness. We can enjoy it and have temporal happiness if we understand that it's temporary, it's going to come about and it's going to pass, and then there's another moment. And these are things that we can begin to become aware of as we meditate. So as we meditate, we begin to realize that we're not in the moment. Actually, the moment's not in the moment. There is no real moments. We have a stream of consciousness that's always moving. There is no place within that to grasp at, to find oneself. Within ourselves, within our feelings, within our thoughts, within our body, within anything that we're aware of, any phenomena outside of ourselves, it's not there. It's never there. Everything is a dependent arising. And so what happens with the moment is that the moment is actually, you could say, is more of a micro moment. But actually the micro moment is not either, because it's a beginning of a new moment. And then the next moment. And so once we begin to slow ourselves down, slow the world down, we begin to be in the nowness, becoming aware of the nowness that's there, and appreciate the nowness that's taking place. When our mind is agitated, and our breathing, why we use breathing, like following the breath in and following the breath out, is to be quieting our mind, quieting our energy. When we're upset, when we become agitated, our breathing becomes really rough. So especially in the Vajrayana tantric practices of Tibetan Buddhism, it's always mentioned that the mind rides our energy, our wind, like a person would ride a horse. They're always together. If we bring our mind into a subtle state, we'll bring our energy and our wind into its more subtle state. If we bring our winds into a more subtle state, it automatically, that mind that is with it is the subtle, more subtle, quiet mind. That's always there. It's always there every moment. But the habit formation, we recycled our habit formation, which leaves layers on top of our clear awareness. Our mind by nature is clarity and knowing. It's got primordial awareness, clear awareness. But like we see on certain days, there becomes, the winds, which is like the winds of our karma, blow, and there's clouds within the sky. And so some days, as strong as the sun is, we can't see the sun because the clouds are so thick. So these clouds of formations that exist but are not one with the sky will dissipate and the sky will appear. So our mind is like a mirror. A mirror reflects an object. It has the ability to reflect it. But it doesn't say, oh, that's a good image, that's a bad image. It reflects it. That's what our mind does. The delusions bring in and put on, the conceptual mind creates a pattern of labeling. Oh, this is this is that. Those are made by our own mind. It's a faulty type of what do you call it? Programming. It's a faulty program. We've created a faulty program.
Question.
Yes.
So how to make decision? If some situation arise, make decision. If everybody's no right, no wrong, which is very good. Mm-hmm. But how to make decision? What based?
So the ability of the mind in its nature is made up of wisdom, of knowledge, of awareness. It has natural awareness within oneself. So when your mind is not covered and not diluted, the clarity is there. So I always like to tell a story, which is a true story. When I was about 7 years old, I used to walk to school. And when I would walk to school, there were train tracks. So it just happened on the one day, a train was coming. I've stepped onto the tracks, the things go down, and ding, 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 ding. And so, at that moment, if your mind freezes, panics, and I don't know what to do, I can go that way, I can go that way. Either one is just as good. So obviously I went one way, because I'm here today, but that is the clarity that comes up, that the panic, the main delusions, the main problems of anger, for example, why I become upset with something. Those are something that in the Vajrayana and the Tantric practices become transformed, what's called into the 5 wisdoms. So, for example, the anger and hatred gets transformed into the wisdom of equanimity. So it's like that mirror, that's able to reflect, basically. And so that's what also becomes what's known as the 5 Buddhas. The 5 Buddhas are part of those. So it's all of them is the same energy. It's just being, in some places, we have clear awareness, and other times we don't. When we don't, we're not aware. So when the clarity is there, the knowledge to how to deal with the world around you is also very clear. It unfolds itself because that's what we have that ability within us to know.
Nature.
Yes. So this is basically allows us to get into the moment, understand. It doesn't, because we get into a moment doesn't mean we don't know where we're going, for example. But if I'm going to drive from, here to California, for example, I know I might have a route that I'm going to be taking, but we have to take each moment, each step. If it's walking or if it's driving, we have to take each step at a time. We need to slow ourselves down and be in the now. That's where many types of mindfulness practices, awareness begins to develop. So, for example, even for the matter of somebody, we go to a restaurant with somebody because, okay, this is something that I'm going to enjoy, going to this particular restaurant, and we get a good meal, that's served to us. But we take that food and we don't taste it. We just, we shovel it down our throats, basically, because that food is my happiness, and the more I can get and the faster I can get it, the happier I'm going to be. Wrong. That's not what happens. If anything, we get indigestion. We overeat. But if we take one bite at a time, we recognize the food, how we're taking it, how it's going into our mouth, how it tastes, chewing it. Allow it to enter our body as actual medicine. We can feel it actually enhance ourselves. Just like our breath, our breathing, we can feel it purifying ourselves, healing ourselves. So this is where we begin to slow down and you do some of these practices. And, for example, when we have work, and then it's like, oh, I've got many things to do. And I say, oh my God, how am I going to do it? How am I going to do it? Well, we just have to do it. We just have to do it. We do it and we just relax and we do one thing at a time. And once we begin to just take it down to doing one thing at a time, before we know it, we find out we actually have much more time than we thought we did. And we can do other things. This is why these practices are practices of, knowing who we are, learning who we are, which also means recognizing our present limitations, but not overestimating them to think that those are final limitations. And so because of that, we can go, we can then begin to expand ourselves and do more and more, because our mind is a beautiful thing. Our mind is something that has all the good qualities within it that can be found. That's what's actually known as Buddha. Buddha is recognizing, developing all of that positive qualities that that exist within oneself, and eliminating these deluded areas, the deluded thoughts. So the deluded thoughts that come up, or the deluded type of ways of recognizing things, misinterpret. We believe in everything as we see it, feel it, and hear it. So unless we investigate it, we won't see that it doesn't actually exist the way that we see it. So when we think things are absolute the way that we see them. Now, when we sit here, we sit there and no, I don't think that way. I don't really. Well, yeah, we do. If we look very closely, yes, we do. That is absolutely beautiful, and that is absolutely not beautiful. We're all in. We're all in on that. Our concept of ourself, we have this awareness throughout the day, and we have self-awareness. We have awareness of oneself, but that awareness of self is diluted. It's not recognizing it properly. So it's thinking because this is me, then that is that. And so our mind lives in the energy into this dualistic conceptuality. And we stamp it every second Every moment we cling and grasp to that self again, and that is that. We recycle ourselves. That's what samsara is. Samsara is a Sanskrit word. It means cyclic existence. We started recycling way before people started doing, for ecology, recycling out here. We've been recycling for many, many, many years, many, many lifetimes. But we've been recycling the wrong things. But when we stop for a moment and recognize the true nature within us, the Buddha nature, the awakened nature within us, then we begin to appreciate every moment, every situation. The situation is just a situation. It is what it is. What we project onto it is what reinforces this. We completely reinforce this feeling, this thought of ourself. So once we begin to sit, and we begin to sit quietly, we have all different things that come about. So if the meditation we're doing is you basically are concentrating. I mean, meditation can be, focusing your mind onto an external object. Could be a candle, could be, some little light. It could be a stone, or could be a statue, could be a picture, or it could be something mentally, or as we were doing, it could be your breath. You're just recognizing your breath and feeling your inhalations, exhalation. And you're just aware. And then your mind goes off. The energy takes you into some other realm. But when you become aware of it, you just recognize it. The moment it's recognized, it's already lost some strength. Because at first it had a lot of power. Now you're looking at it, recognizing it, and somehow it's already begin to weaken, because you're not there anymore anyway. You're not in that moment anymore. You're in the next moment, the next moment, the next moment, the next micro moment, the next micro moment. And when you quiet down enough, there does become a time where you can become aware of a space in between thoughts as well. And you can actually have an experience of non-conceptuality, of openness and clarity. That's possible. That's within us. That can happen at any moment. It can happen while we're sitting in meditation, or it could be happening, when we're driving or walking. Once we begin to develop, this ability to work with our mind, to work with our energy, it becomes an enlightenment right there. Wow, things are actually okay. Things are actually all right. Things are not so bad. Well, what am I getting depressed over? Why am I walking around depressed all the time? We get out of that bubble of what we think as me, and we don't try to live within that bubble and reinforce that bubble over and over again. And the ability of flexibility, of total type of openness becomes part of our being, part of our experience. And that's what begins to open us up, to the path itself, which is, what we are looking at for, instead of looking for, what we thought was going to, bring us back happiness, which is only material things. These are only things that we use. We need the material things because we're in the material world, but they're not our ultimate goal. We can't take money with us when we're done. Money can't come with us. Our homes can't come with us. All we bring with us is what state of mind we're in. So when we go see some of these lamas, they recognize the importance of using their time, to develop their awareness, full awareness of themselves. And then they become recognized as someone who, has been very developed in a previous life. So even I always like the example in the Western world of, like a Beethoven. I mean, what was he? Was he like 5 years old, I think? Was it Beethoven that was 5 years old? And could all of a sudden, what we can take with us is what's in our mind and the energy that goes along with that. So that, whether it's developing spiritual awareness, awakenings, or even on this level of, really, music is a path, it's sound. It's the same thing as sound, same as like with mantras. It's vibration. It can be used for awakening as well. So again, when the lamas are, reincarnated, that's because they've worked on themselves. They've developed themselves. And so we have that ability too. And that's that's why it's a beautiful thing that we begin to see that if I'm able to sit here and sit quietly with myself, you're sitting in a meditation, whatever, meditation again, whether you want to sit this way, you want to sit in full lotus, there's many different types, like what you're doing now. This is actually something that's used in certain kind of practices, something like that. Or there's other ones where you're, doing, and, ones with the like lion postures. There's many different postures. So the postures themselves, is not something that's the most important. The important thing is internally, what we're doing, and, working with the energy. And when we sit there, and it's a microcosm of what our day is, because it's very difficult once we get outside, because we're already, especially, today, if we're living up in quiet in the mountains, it's a little bit less, it's a lot less, because here we've got colors being flashed at us, signs, buy this, do that, cars coming at us, all these things. So it becomes important, to be able to develop, the inner clarity, inner awareness, inner quiet. And I'm actually, all we can do is use words, but the words are wrong. You don't develop those. They actually already are there. They actually already exist. When the clouds lift, that's why in a moment you can be sitting there, and that becomes a dawn, becomes a clarity, becomes an enlightenment. In a moment, you can begin to recognize. So when we sit, and the things that are going to arise up, because they are, no matter what, no matter where you are, things that come up in the way your body feels, the way your moods are, all of these things, if we sit with them, we can get into the ultimate relaxed state. The ultimate relaxed state is the state of, and this is jumping a little bit, but can be done within the moment, becomes the state of non-doing, of non-meditating, not doing something. So all of a sudden, I'm sitting there, I'm feeling, really, I think I'd like to go get some tea and get some breakfast, do this, and it's wanting to move me from, sitting there and sitting with myself. But you just become aware of that. You don't push it away. We're not trying to stop thoughts. As I said to you, in between thoughts, there is that non-conceptual space that's there.
Exercise ring closed.
But you do not need, in a sense, you do not need to grasp at that space. So letting go, I like to say always, letting go is actually something that's more of a situation, because letting go is doing something. It's a form of doing. You're saying let go, you're doing something. It's more or less non-doing. Oh, okay. This is coming up, that's coming up, this is there, that. And you just let go. So I think for today, we'll, leave it there. And if you want to, discuss a little more stuff that's popped up in your minds or questions, we can take a few minutes to do that as well. No, leave it on. See if there's some questions, we'll let it. If you don't have questions, it's also okay.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned that when the situation occurs and we have to make a decision, and I think sometimes just we don't have to rush to make a decision. Let that situation develop, and then the answer becomes
Apparent.
more apparent, and then you're not
Yeah.
blaming yourself to decide this or that.
No, exactly right. You know, it's kind of like, you know, if you're in school and you've got an exam, and especially when they put that exam and say, okay, you've got 1 hour to finish this or 2 hours or whatever the limit is, they've already created a
Tension.
tension because they've encompassed you into a small space in a sense.
But this is the interesting test.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I've been to exam like this,
Yeah.
and we have some hours to do, and I just didn't play that game.
Yeah.
So I walked to that exam. It was very created and purposely, very tense.
Yeah.
They took everything, including my scarf, everything. So we sit on the computer, and the clock is ticking. Tick, 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 tick. They're showing the clock. You know?
Yeah.
And I like, and whatever answer I know, I just answer whatever I don't next without any tension.
Yeah, and then you get to it. And then of course within that, because that tension was created, and it sounds like you had the correct approach that I would agree 100% with. But if you get to that point where you're looking at something and you should know it, but you can't, you have a mental block, move on to the next one. You move on to the next question, or you just watch your breathing a little bit, you know. So that's why when people are in meditation, like when you're in retreats, it's not that doesn't happen. So sometimes you need to go out and take a walk. You know, that's why there's also some of these meditations which are what's called sky gazing. You know, where you begin to just become aware of the space. You know, open space, because you know the mind will open itself up again. So the fact of the matter is that every situation is workable. And all of the teachings that are given, there's thousands of teachings and there's thousands of techniques, because we're all very different. None of us are the same. Doesn't matter if we're born twins. You know, we've got different baggage that we've brought with us. And even this lifetime, we do some things a little bit differently. And so because of that, there are certain things that are going to be, very, very useful. Those are what the teachings are. Those are what the dharmas are. So sometimes they say there's 84,000, delusions. And so there's also 84,000 dharmas or medicines, practices for them. And so you begin to understand that there's a lot of different approaches, but also where we are at the time. I always like to say, like, if you have a small child and you expect that small child to run as fast as you, I'm not saying it's impossible. Maybe, some child might be able to, but mostly they can't. So the present situation. And so we have to develop along the way. So even when we're in different things like this, doing talks or meditations and that, we all will hear it from different levels. But at some point in our life, they've left seeds that also open up, and we understand them on other levels. And so there's many, many different practices, because I hear, many people say, oh, well, you're not supposed to meditate that way. You're not supposed to have thoughts. Well, first of all, thoughts are part of our being. We do have thoughts. Thoughts are not a problem. The problem is everything we do with all of our thoughts, and what kind of thoughts are they. But in meditation, we can become aware. We can have awareness of them and let them arise and let them fall and begin to recognize. But people say, oh, when you meditate, you have to have this mudra, or you have to have this mudra, or you have to have this. It doesn't, all of those they're all just gimmicks in a sense, to a certain degree. They do have some value, but we can't put an absolute on them that you have to do this way. So that's why this technique of how you're sitting right now is actually quite a good one that's used by, a lot of the different yoginis would be using. Yogini is the female version of, an adept, a practitioner that's very accomplished in things. There's many, many, many different ways of doing things. So we can't grasp on, this is the only way. Okay.
Yeah.
I just have to say one thing, which I love to say. I was helping lead one of Lama Zopa's meditation courses, which is the 1 month course. The second 2 weeks is in silence and 1 meal a day, and you take certain precepts each day, and it's pretty.
How many weeks in silence?
You have 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks is not. The second 2 weeks is 1 meal a day with, you take these certain vows for the day, which is not eating after lunchtime. With those, that's not important, but it's just that it's kind of a strict course that I think I mentioned to you before. That's happening in about this time of year every year. Up in at the monastery that I lived at in Kathmandu, outside of Kathmandu. But I was leading it, and so there was a question and answer thing, and we had 200 people that were there for the month for this course. And one guy in the back sat and he said, "But wait a minute, Jesus said my way is the only way." I said, Jesus was right. He's right. His way was the only way. But if Jesus is going to sweep, and he sweeps the way they sweep in the Middle East, and Buddha's in India or Nepal, and he sweeps it a different way, it's not the motion of how he's sweeping, but does he have full awareness the way he's doing it? So his way is the only way, but it's not what technique you're using for sweeping. That can be different according to culture. Those are just cultural things. So anyway, got off track a little. Do you, anything else?
So yeah, I would like to ask you, what is the tip to get out from stress? What is your tip would be to get out from stress?
From stress?
Come back to your real nature?
So, obviously, you can get yourself into extreme stressful situation caught in traffic.
Yeah, because when you're at the stress, you just forget it about what you know,
Mm-hmm.
and the techniques probably, if you're not like very,
Developed, you're saying.
developed, right?
Yeah. So basically, the first thing is, and it was funny because while I was driving, I was talking to Martin, because Martin wasn't feeling that well and things. So I was talking to him a little bit, and I wanted to point out to him, just as I got to one spot, I was already aware of it because I had driven this route many times. So I stayed in the one lane that I could.
So you being destined on the way helping Martin.
I don't know, but a freight train came. So I could have been stuck for 15 minutes, I could have been stuck for 30 minutes, but I knew to stay in the left lane because I've taken that route. It's the route I would take to go to the airport from my house, or when I went to visit my father, who was over here in Glenview, when he was in the getting care at the end of his life. And so I knew about this freight train and hit it. So I can either, oh my God, the freight train. But instead I knew, okay, I just turn around here, go back to Grand, go down to Mannheim, and then go down, and it'll take me, and I go around, and okay, no problem. It is what it is, again, and you're okay. But when you're in these really stressful situations, the very first easy thing to do is your breath and your mind ride together. So you take a couple nice breaths, very soft, light, and out. Maybe 3 times or so. At that moment, you will recognize space. I'm not going to say create. You will recognize the space. Space is always there. That's what I'm trying to say. Everything is space. We think everything we see, okay, that's a solid floor. But in actuality, within that floor is made, there's a lot of space. There is no one thing that's floor. It's a lot of things put together in wood,
Yeah.
right?
Cells a lot of.
There's nothing, there is no, there is no floor that's existing there. There's some physical energy that's there, and there's some space that's there. Space is always there. So that, that breathing is probably one of the best. It's the same thing, also the mantra Ah. The mantra Ah is what's used a lot in like the practice of Dzogchen practices. It represents Dzogchen because, and you can do that when you're out there because, this is more or less recognizing, it's representing universal space and clarity. So just it's just open. It just becomes open. So you can use mantra, you can use some breathing, and those are good. You can use other ones. I mean, obviously, if you like to repeat and like to sing some ones like Chenre Zigzal Mani Padme Hum, or Tarom Tade Tu Tade Tu Re Soa, those things will put will begin to reduce the ignorant energy that's telling you to be stressed at that time. And it'll allow you to be able to make the right decisions and quiet your mind down.
As bombardment. So when we have this is bombardment, and I like to always study myself, like what is, like for me, spirituality has to be practical, because there's no another purpose just to make myself better, to serve others or to assist others correct way. So breath is like number one. I really test it.
Yeah.
So you just do on purpose and you watch, it will come back. Because when we stress, watch how you breathe.
Yeah.
We stop. I mean, many times I test it.
Now,
just breathing faster.
no, you don't want to breathe faster.
We actually stop. Very, very rare.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The breath becomes.
Not deep enough.
You lose the rhythm.
Oh, yeah.
You lose the rhythm of your breath. Because it's
And the heart.
So that's the other thing is, as I was saying in the meditation, you can also, once you've quieted down that little bit there, you can also feel, where am I holding that? And so that could be in the heart chakra, or I could be feeling a lump in my throat, the throat chakra, could be the top of the head, or it could be here like, oh my God, I've got like a sinus headache or something, or it could be down in the lower areas by the navel, abdomen, and that. And you can become aware of where you're kind of holding that, and you'll be able to see that wrong view inside of yourself is telling you to squeeze yourself, to tighten, so that it tightens up your there, and then it tightens up your back, and then it's creates all these issues. So but those are very important. Take the breathing, take the mantra, and become aware of how you feel. Feel where the tension is. These terms are very smart. Somebody knew them somewhere along the way, but we never, oh, you're very uptight. That's right. Because the tension's all moved up and things, right? So we can let that all kind of drop and open up by becoming aware that I'm doing that. If you're sitting there and your shoulders are up like this, maybe not even like this, but they're like this, and then you feel, oh, let them drop. That's because you can become aware that you're squeezing. Lama Yeshe used to love to say, dear, you're squeezing, too tight. We're becoming too tight. So those are easy techniques, simple. Breath, a mantra, and awareness.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you.